Part 2, California and Arizona, 1944 to 1945. Chapter 7, Do the good and don't look at who receives it. Mexican proverb. Sylvia, Boston, Arizona. You better hurry up if you want to come with me, Sylvia's father said, smiling. For 2 years she had begged to ride with him when he went to the internment camp to deliver the rent payment to the Japanese family. This was the first time he had agreed to let her join him. Really? Sylvia asked. I can go with you? She rushed to find her shoes without waiting for an answer. She didn't want to give her father a chance to change her mind. A few minutes later, Sylvia was in the Pontiac sedan and they were on their way. Sylvia's father asked, What do you know about where we're going? To the place where the Japanese family lives, she said. That's right, he said, to Boston. And do you know what an internment camp is? Sylvia nodded. It's a prison for Japanese people. Not exactly, he said. The people there aren't prisoners. They didn't do anything wrong. Then why are they in there? Her father sighed. It's complicated, he said. Some people believe that the Japanese are a threat to our national security. Sylvia didn't understand, but she didn't want to make him regret taking her along because she asked too many why questions. They drove the 250 miles to Boston in 4 hours with the windows down and the radio on. Sylvia didn't often have the chance to be alone for so long with her father. She liked hearing him tap his hands against the steering wheel and the smell of his aftershave. She liked watching his dark hair flutter in the wind. Along the way, just as the Andrews sisters finished up Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, Sylvia asked, Why don't you just mail the rent to them instead of driving so far? It's up to me to make sure they get their money, he answered. Don't they get mail at Boston? They do. Sometimes the censors who check the mail take things. They steal? Some do, he said. And the Minomitsus don't need excuses. They need their money. Maybe the wrong people are locked up, she thought. When Glenn Miller's I've Got a Gal in Kalamazoo came on, Sylvia settled back and listened to her father sing along. She closed her eyes, and before long she fell asleep. There it is, her father said, waking her up. She could see in the distance what looked like clustered warehouses surrounded by a fence. This place sure looks like a prison, she thought grimly, no matter what Dad says. Will I get to go inside? Sylvia asked. Can I meet the girl who had my room? I have no idea, her father said. We'll find out. They left the car, went through security, and then waited in one of the administration buildings. After a few minutes, a Japanese woman, a young man, and a girl, a little older than Sylvia, stepped into the room. The woman wore a plain cotton dress, and her black hair was drawn into a neat knot at the back of her head. Thank you for coming, the young man said. The two men shook hands. Sylvia's father placed his hand on her shoulder. This is my daughter, Sylvia. Japanese word. The woman said, smiling and bowing slightly. Nice to meet you, Sylvia. This is my son and my daughter. Nice to meet all of you, too, Sylvia replied. Sylvia's eyes met the other girl's briefly. That girl in the picture had shorter hair, but they have to be the same person, she decided. Her father handed Mrs. Minomitsu an envelope with the rent money, and then the adults began to discuss the farm's irrigation system. Is your name Aki? Sylvia asked. The girl's eyes widened. Yes, how do you know my name? You left your 3rd grade class picture in my closet. Well, our closet, Sylvia said. You wrote your name on the back. Aki smiled. Oh, yes, I remember. I'm staying in your room, Sylvia said, the one with the yellow walls. Sylvia thought of it as her room now, but in her heart she knew that it also belonged to Aki. Aki didn't say anything. When I first moved in, I found your doll, the one with the red robe. Sylvia nodded. It was on the high shelf in the closet. Her name is Miyoshi, Aki said. Oh, I didn't know, Sylvia said. I call her Keiko. Keiko, Aki said. I like that. I'll take good care of her for you. Aki let out a sigh. Sylvia thought, maybe she doesn't like the idea of sharing her room with me. How frustrating it must be to stay behind that barbed wire fence, watching us come and go. Come along, Sylvia, her father said. We need to get home. Aki was looking at the ground. I bet Aki wants to go home, too. Before leaving, Sylvia marveled at how the people inside the camp had built an oasis in the desert. Between the barracks and in the fields around the buildings, they had planted lush gardens and grown tomatoes, eggplants, squash, and other vegetables. In the 2 years they had lived there, the people of Boston had turned brown to green, barren to fertile, dead to alive. They are farmers, Sylvia thought along the way home, just like we are. To the sun and the seeds and the soil, Mexican or Japanese, Mendez or Minomitsu, didn't matter. The people knew how to make things grow. All right, hi all. I'm about to read chapter 8 of Sylvia and Aki. I just Googled how to say the city from Arizona because I was feeling a little weird. And it says it's Poston, Arizona. I'm not familiar with this city. I'm pretty good with my geography, but I'm going to start saying it as Poston. Sorry if I've been bugging you the whole time saying it wrong, but there it is. So let's start chapter 8. One kind word can warm 3 winter months. Japanese proverb. Aki, Poston, Arizona. Shh, Seiko whispered to someone as he shut the door. Don't wake up my little sister. Hi, yes, another male voice said. Aki felt a blast of frigid February air. Poston's cruel weather included both extremes, sweltering summers and winter lows well below freezing. The flimsy walls of the barracks did little to keep out either hot or cold. Aki breathed slow and deep, pretending to sleep. Though she faced the wall, she had recognized the voice of Isohoy, her brother's friend. Are you going to fill it out? Isohoy asked. I guess we have to, Seiko said. Aki guessed what they were talking about, the leave clearance application, a questionnaire that had just been distributed to everyone at the camp over age 17. Seiko had gotten one. He had recently turned 18. I don't know what they want us to say, Isohoy said. I don't want to say the wrong thing in case it's some kind of trick. A trick? Seiko asked. To test our loyalty. I haven't read it yet. Isn't it just a list of questions? It's not that easy, Isohoy said. Question 27 asks if we're willing to serve in the armed forces of the United States on combat duty, wherever ordered. Aki heard Isohoy slap some papers on the table. I'm willing to serve my country, he said. I'm willing to fight. Then why not answer yes, Aki wondered. But not against Japan, the young man went on. Not in Japan. My grandparents, my cousins, they still live there. Aki understood. He might be fighting against his family. How could this government, any government, ask such a terrible thing? And if you don't answer yes, Seiko said, then you're considered a traitor to the United States. What kind of choice is that? Aki asked herself. Cold blasted across the room again. Aki's mother had returned from the latrine. Isohoy, she said, good evening. It's late, Seiko said. Let me read this over and we'll talk about it in the morning. Isohoy said good night and left. Seiko sighed heavily. Aki heard him flip the paper over. At one point, he slammed down the pen. Go to bed, their mother murmured. We will talk in the morning. Aki heard Seiko drop onto his bed. A moment later, he was back up, pacing the room. What's the matter? Aki knew that her brother would not have to struggle with the question that bothered Isohoy. Seiko could not serve in the military. He had suffered from polio as a child and walked with a significant limp. This is wrong, Seiko said to his mother. I am an American. How dare they ask me that? Shh, your sister. What is the problem? Question 28. Seiko's voice was an angry whisper. It says, will you swear unqualified allegiance to the United States of America and faithfully defend the United States from any or all attacks by foreign or domestic forces, and forswear any form of allegiance or obedience to the Japanese emperor or any other foreign government, power, or organization? Seiko took a long breath. What nerve! I'm imprisoned in this camp, being denied my rights as a U.S. citizen, and at the same time I'm being asked to deny my loyalty to any other group. Are we still U.S. citizens? Aki realized she didn't know. What am I supposed to do? Seiko asked. Aki felt sorry for her brother and torn in two herself. No longer fully American, yet not Japanese either. Not quite a prisoner, not quite free. She felt lost in the desert, wandering between a past that was gone and a future that stretched before her, barren as the land surrounding them. You must do what you think is right, their mother replied softly. Seiko sat at the table and filled out the form without another word. Aki could only hear the chair scrape the floor and his pen scratching the paper. Eventually, he sighed heavily again and put down the pen and returned to bed. As May burned hot over Poston, Seiko lined up a job at a foundry in Denver as part of a work release program. He planned to save as much of his pay as possible so that his family would have money to start over when they were free. Before her brother left Poston, Aki would have said that she could not possibly stand another separation. She had been truly amazed to learn what her heart could bear when it had no choice but to keep on beating. Aki and her mother accompanied Seiko to the administration building on the day that he and a dozen others left. She did not cry when Seiko said, well, I guess this is it. She did not cry when he hugged her and lifted her off the ground for what might be the last time for a long while. She did not cry when she heard her mother let out a whimper. She tried to imagine a future, a not too distant future, When the war would be over and the entire family, she and Seiko and Mom and Pop, would be together again. When they would go back to the farm and things would be the way they used to be, the way they were supposed to be. That's all she could do these days, it seemed. Just imagine and believe and wait.